Um, I began to love him as a brother, and his constant and deep grief fills me with sympathy and compassion. He must have been a noble creature in his better days, being even now in a wreck so attractive and amiable. I said in one of my letters, dear Margaret, that I should find no friend in the wide ocean. Yet I have found a man who, before his spirit had been broken by misery, I should have been happy to possess as a brother of my heart. I shall continue my journal concerning the stranger at intervals, should I have a fresh incidents to record. So we can do 8. You've done 8. 9, describe this man, why he's come so far on the ice. What does Walton like about the stranger? So you know 8, 9, and 10. Why does Walton, number 10, why does Walton like him? Why does he like him? He kind of told us there. He says he began to love him as a brother. Why do you think he likes him? What was the one thing he didn't have out here? Isabella, what's the one thing he didn't have?
A friend.
Right. Well, now he's got one. First of all, he's somebody else. But notice they keep saying how kind he is, how appreciative he is, and he's interesting. So we'll find out other reasons why he likes him, but those are a few to begin with. How would you describe him, Delaney, number 9? This guy, he's Dr. Frankenstein, but how does he describe? He says his limbs were nearly frozen, his body dreadfully emaciated by fatigue and suffering. I never saw a man in so wretched a condition. So those are the reasons, or that's what he looked like. He was about dead, he was emaciated, he was thin, he was frozen. And who did they see out there first? That was the giant, or the monster. All right, Delaney, you're next. Where I left off. My affection for my guest.
My affection for my guest increases every day. He excites at once my admiration and my pity to an astonishing degree. How can I see so noble a creature destroyed by misery without feeling the most
Poignant. You don't pronounce the G. It's poignant.
Poignant grief. He is so gentle yet so wise. His mind is cultivated, and when he speaks, although his words are cooled by the choicest art, yet they flow with rapidity and unparalleled eloquence.
So, Aurora, what are some more reasons why he likes him?
He's wise and he's gentle, and I guess the way he talks is just very captivating.
Very good. It says he's cultivated. So he's well educated. He's probably a high class British. They don't know who he is. He's actually German. But anyway, those are some more reasons. You want to read another one?
He is now much recovered from his illness and is continually on the deck, apparently watching for the sledge that preceded his own. Yet although unhappy, he is not so utterly occupied by his own misery, but that he interests himself deeply in the projects of others. He has frequently conversed with me on mine, which I have communicated to him without disguise. He entered attentively into all my arguments in favor of eventual success. Into every minute detail of the measures I have taken to secure it, I was easily led by the sympathy which he evinced to use the language of my heart, to give an utterance to the burning
Ardor.
ardor of my soul, and to say with all the
Fervor.
that warms me. Now I would sacrifice my fortune, my existence, my every hope to the furtherance of my enterprise. One man's life or death were but a small price to pay for the
Acquirement.
of the knowledge which I have sought, for the dominion I should require and transmit over the elemental foes of our race. As I spoke, a dark gloom spread over my listener's account.
Before you finish that paragraph, notice what Walton is saying. One's man life or death were but a small price to pay for the acquirement of the knowledge which I sought, but the dominion I should acquire and transmit over the elemental forces of our race. That tells you a lot about Walton. He doesn't care if people die as a result of his work. He also thinks the acquirement of knowledge is the most important thing, and it would give him power over nature, and it would give him power over people. All right, you can keep reading.
At first I perceived that he tried to suppress his emotion. He placed his hands before his eyes, and my voice quivered and failed me as I beheld tears dripping fast from between his fingers. A groan burst from his heaving breast. I paused. At length he spoke in broken accents. Unhappy man, do you share my madness? Have you drunk also of the intoxicating draught? Hear me and let me reveal my tale, and you will dash the cup from your lips.
Say, why is he going to talk to Frankenstein? What is he worried? What does he want? Question number 11. What's he going to warn him of? What seems to be his problem with Frankenstein's, his ambitions? It says, unhappy man, do you share my madness? Have you drank also of the intoxicating draught? Here, let me reveal my tale. So he's worried about about Walton's pursuit of knowledge for all costs and power. He's going to tell him a story now that he hopes will change Walton's mind. Isabella.
Such words you may imagine strongly excited my curiosity as the
Paroxysm.
paroxysm of grief that had seized this stranger overcame his weakened powers. His many hours of proposed and tranquil conversation were necessary to restore his composure. Having conquered the violence of his feelings, he appeared to despise himself for being the slave of passion, impelling the dark tyranny of despair. He led me again to converse concerning myself personally. He asked me the history of my early years. The tale was quickly told, but it awakened various trains of reflection. I spoke of my desire of finding a friend, of my thirst for a more intimate sympathy with a fellow mind than had ever fallen to my lot, and expressed my conviction that a man could boast of little happiness who did not enjoy this blessing. I agree with you, replied the stranger. We are unfashioned creatures, but half made up. If one wiser, better, dearer than ourselves, such a friend ought to be. Do not lend his aid to perfectionate our weak and faulty natures. I once had a friend, the most noble of human creatures, and am entitled, therefore, to judge respecting friendship. You have hope and the world before you, and have no cause for despair. But I have lost everything and cannot begin life again. As he said this, his countenance became expressive of a calm, settled grief that touched me to the heart. But he was silent and presently retired to his cabin.
Aurora, would you finish it?
Even broken spirit as he is, no one can feel more deeply than he does the beauties of nature. The starry sky, the sea, and every sight afforded by these wonderful regions seem still to have the power of elevating his soul from earth. Such a man has a double existence. He may suffer misery and be overwhelmed by disappointments, yet when he has retired into himself, he will be like a celestial spirit that has a halo around him, within whose circle no grief or folly ventures. Will you smile at the enthusiasm I express concerning this divine wanderer? You would not if you saw him. You have been tutored and somewhat fastidious, but this only renders you the more so to appreciate the extraordinary merits of this wonderful man. Sometimes I have endeavored to discover what quality it is which he possesses that elevates him so immeasurably above any other person I ever knew. I believe it to be an intuitive
Discernment.
a quick but never failing power of judgment, a penetration into the cause of things, unequaled bold for clearness and precision. Add to this a faculty of expression and a voice whose very annotations are soul-subduing music.
All right, let me finish it today. Yesterday, this is another letter. Yesterday, a stranger said to me, "You may easily perceive, Captain Walton, that I have suffered great and unparalleled misfortunes. I had determined at one time that the memory of these evils should die with me, but you have won me to alter my determinations. You seek for knowledge and wisdom, as I once did, and I ardently hope that the gratification of your wishes may not be a serpent to sting you." What does he mean by that? The desire for knowledge is not a serpent to sting you. What is that a reference to? You know of any story where a serpent gets involved? Or Adam and Eve. So he's likening, and what was Eve's desire? What did Eve actually do to disobey God? She ate the apple. No, what an apple? She ate the fruit, right? But what was it the fruit of? You remember? The knowledge of good and evil. That was the fruit that was forbidden, and she ate it. And so, notice what he says. You seek for wisdom, and that's the same thing Eve wanted, right? As I once did. I ardently hope that the gratification of your wishes may not be a serpent to sting you. How was she punished? You remember, Isabella, how Eve was punished?
You were cast out.
That's one. Do you remember anything else, Aurora? How about it?
Sin was brought down to earth.
Yes. And how was she personally affected by that? She had to die, right? And also, remember what it said about childbirth? She would suffer in childbirth. That all women after her, there would be pain in childbirth. So she was punished. Now, she didn't immediately die. She lived, we don't know how long she lived. But she did eventually die. So her desire for knowledge outside of God, because she broke God's command, caused that. I do not know that the relation of my disasters will be useful to you. Yet, when I reflect that you are pursuing the same course, exposing yourself to the same dangers which I have rendered me what I am, I imagine that you may deduce an apt moral of my tale, one that may direct you if you succeed in your undertaking and console you in the case of failure. Prepare to hear of occurrences which are usually deemed marvelous. Were we among the tamer natures of scenes of nature, I might fear to encounter your unbelief, perhaps your ridicule. But many things will appear possible in these wild and mysterious regions which would provoke the laughter of those unacquainted with the ever-varied powers of nature. Nor can I doubt but that my tale conveys in its series internal evidence of the truth of the events of which it is composed. So he believes that his story, although if he thinks, some people would think it was preposterous, he thinks you will believe me. Let me just read a couple more here. You may easily imagine that I was much gratified by the offered communication, yet I could not endure that he should renew his old grief by a recital of his misfortunes. I felt the greatest eagerness to hear the promised narrative, partly from curiosity and partly from a strong desire to ameliorate his fate. If it were in my power, I expressed these feelings in my answer. I thank you, he replied, for your sympathy, but it is useless. My fate is nearly fulfilled. I wait but for one event, and then I shall repose in peace. I understand your feeling, continued he, perceiving that I wished to interrupt him. But you are mistaken, my friend. If thus you will allow me to name you, nothing can alter my destiny. Listen to my history, and you will perceive how irrevocably it is determined. How much are you, I don't know what you have tomorrow. What do you have tomorrow?
Physics.
A test?
Quiz.
All right, do you have time to read? I'm not going to ask you to read a lot, but I'm going to ask you to read something. All right, I'm just going to ask you to read. I want to ask you to read a lot tomorrow. Just the next chapter. It's just 5 pages long, but it's not easy reading. So would you read the next chapter for tomorrow? All right, that will save us a little time, and then tomorrow, I won't give you anything for Monday, because I think it's a family weekend, but I will give you some what we're gonna do is, we won't read it every day in class, we'll talk about it, and, we're gonna do some other things, and we'll start that, we might even start that tomorrow, but if you'll read chapter 1, I think we're in
Can we
good
answer
shape.
questions with it?
That'd be great. We can go over them, but I wouldn't give you a quiz on one, although we need some quizzes, but I'll probably give you a quiz sometime next week on what we've read. Okay, we've done through 11 questions. That's all we've done. So you're gonna read chapter 1, Frankenstein.
Oh, yeah, because usually she does the Oh, yeah, but when are we supposed to even know for these things?
We can go ahead. This will be for tomorrow.
Is it like the, it's like
Gravity and electromagnetic.
Yeah.